The Admiral ripped the insignia from her uniform in front of the entire crew. "Leave my ship," he ordered coldly. Commander Hale said nothing, saluting perfectly before walking toward the waiting helicopter. The crew watched in confused silence as their most decorated officer was publicly humiliated and banished. 6 hours later, alarms blared across the carrier. A nuclear submarine had surfaced off the starboard bow, refusing all communications except 5 words on the main display. Awaiting orders from Commander Hale. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If you appreciate stories of justice and redemption against all odds, consider subscribing for more content like this. Aboard the USS Everett, America's newest aircraft carrier, dawn broke with unusual tension. The vast flight deck, normally bustling with activity, stood eerily empty except for a small group gathered near the command tower. The sea stretched out around them, gray and unforgiving in the early light, matching the mood of the gathering. Commander Astrea Hale stood at attention before Admiral Malcolm Whitcroft, her face impassive despite the career execution underway. Her dark hair was pulled back in a regulation bun, not a strand out of place. Like her appearance, her posture revealed nothing of what must have been happening inside. "The evidence is irrefutable, Commander," Whitcroft stated coldly. His voice carried across the deck as intended, reaching the crew members pretending not to watch from doorways and windows. Unauthorized communication with the Taiwanese military while operating in contested waters, sharing classified deployment information, endangering this battle group and potentially instigating international conflict. A digital display had been set up nearby, scrolling through Astrea's service record. 15 years of exemplary service, rapid promotions, 3 combat citations, and specialized training in undersea warfare. Nothing in her history suggested disloyalty or poor judgment. Yet she remained silent as the accusations mounted, the wind off the ocean the only sound besides the Admiral's voice. Lieutenant Commander Reese Calloway, her second in command, stood slightly apart, visibly uncomfortable. His eyes flickered between Astrea and the Admiral, his loyalty clearly torn. When he attempted to speak, a senior officer silenced him with a sharp glance. "Evidence was discovered in your encrypted communications during routine security monitoring," the Admiral continued, pacing slowly in front of her. "Your actions represent a fundamental breach of trust that cannot be tolerated." Still, Astrea said nothing. Her silence seemed to frustrate the Admiral more than any defense would have. The morning sun caught the insignia on her uniform, making them gleam briefly before a cloud passed overhead, darkening the scene once more. "Do you have anything to say, Commander?" Whitcroft demanded, stopping directly in front of her. "Request. Permission to review the evidence, sir," Astrea finally responded, her voice steady. "Denied. The material remains classified above your current clearance." A subtle shift occurred among the witnessing officers. The procedural irregularity was obvious to anyone familiar with naval regulations. An accused officer denied access to the evidence against them, violated basic procedural rights. Gulls circled overhead, their cries cutting through the tense silence that followed. The ocean swelled beneath the carrier, a gentle reminder of the isolation of their position, hundreds of miles from shore. "Commander Astrea Hale, you are hereby relieved of duty. You will be transported off this vessel immediately and confined to Naval Base Kitsap, pending formal court-martial proceedings." The Admiral reached forward and removed her insignia of rank himself, a deliberately humiliating gesture rarely witnessed in modern naval proceedings. He held the insignia in his palm for a moment before pocketing them. "Leave my ship." Astrea executed a perfect salute, held it 1 beat longer than necessary, a subtle message to those who understood naval custom, then turned toward the waiting helicopter. As she walked across the vast flight deck, crew members watching from various positions around the carrier faced a dilemma. Protocol demanded they salute an officer regardless of circumstances, yet doing so might be interpreted as defiance of the Admiral. One by one, starting with a young ensign barely visible in a doorway, crew members began rendering salutes, not all, but enough to be noticeable. Each salute was both a mark of respect and a small act of courage. The helicopter rotors began turning as Astrea approached, stirring the still morning air into violent currents. Her uniform jacket flapped against her body, but her stride never faltered. Not once did she look back at the Admiral or the ship that had been her home. As the helicopter lifted off, Admiral Whitcroft watched with satisfaction before addressing the remaining officers. Communications will issue a statement that Commander Hale has been reassigned. No further discussion of this matter is permitted. Lieutenant Commander Calloway stepped forward, his jaw tight with contained emotion. Admiral, with respect, what about Project Poseidon? Commander Hale was the operational lead. There are critical systems only she has access to. That program is now under my direct supervision. Whitcroft interrupted sharply. Return to your stations, all of you. The officers dispersed, murmurs already beginning among them. The story would spread throughout the ship within hours, growing and changing with each retelling. The cloud that had temporarily blocked the sun moved on, and bright sunlight once again flooded the deck, incongruously cheerful against the somber mood. As Calloway turned to leave, a junior communications officer approached the Admiral with a tablet. Sir, we received an unusual ping on Secure, Channel 4. It didn't follow standard protocols. Probably atmospheric interference. Ignore it, the Admiral dismissed, already turning toward the bridge. The officer hesitated, clearly uncertain whether to press the issue. Sir, it came from grid coordinates where no friendly assets are supposed to be operating. The Admiral's expression changed subtly, alertness replacing dismissal. Which coordinates? The Challenger Deep, sir. But nothing can broadcast from that depth. The morning proceeded with an attempt at normalcy, though crew members found themselves watching the officers for cues. In the mess hall, conversations were subdued, breaking off whenever senior staff entered. Lieutenant Commander Calloway sat alone, untouched coffee growing cold before him as he stared at nothing. She didn't do it, a young petty officer whispered to her tablemate nearby. Commander Hale spent 3 years running anti-infiltration protocols. Why would she suddenly turn? People change, her companion replied with a shrug. Maybe she was turned. Maybe she was always... Don't, the petty officer cut him off. You weren't there in the Taiwan Strait. You didn't see her coordinate the rescue when the Roosevelt took that missile hit. She saved 400 lives that day. Then why didn't she defend herself? The question hung unanswered, one of many surrounding the morning's events. In his quarters, Calloway accessed his personal tablet, scrolling through encrypted files. His security clearance still gave him access to parts of Project Poseidon, though much remained restricted. What he found made little sense. Communications logs showing Commander Hale's transmissions, but with anomalies in the timestamps and routing protocols. A knock at his door forced him to shut down the tablet. Enter. Captain Elijah Verne, the USS Everett's commanding officer, stepped inside and closed the door. You're digging, he stated without preamble. Sir, the evidence doesn't make sense. Commander Hale's supposed transmissions were routed through servers she would never use. It's either sloppy tradecraft or fabricated, Verne finished. I know, but tread carefully, Lieutenant Commander. The Admiral has friends in high places. This came down from above him. You believe she's innocent? Verne's expression remained carefully neutral. What I believe doesn't matter. What matters is that we have a carrier group to run and potential hostiles in the region. Focus on your duties. Yes, sir, Calloway replied, though his expression made clear he wasn't satisfied with the answer. And Reese, the captain added more quietly as he opened the door, delete your search history. The morning stretched into afternoon, the carrier group continuing its patrol pattern in the Western Pacific. On the bridge, officers maintained the appearance of routine while carefully avoiding mention of the morning's events. The elephant in the room was acknowledged only in sidelong glances and half-finished sentences. Admiral Whitcroft spent most of the day in secure communications with Pacific Command, emerging only to issue brief orders before disappearing again. His mood, never pleasant, had darkened further, leading staff to avoid him when possible. At 1600 hours, Captain Verne ordered a course change, turning the carrier group northeast toward deeper waters. When questioned by the navigation officer, he cited only command directives and offered no further explanation. Below decks, Engineering Chief Lowell found Lieutenant Commander Calloway inspecting the backup communications array. Bit outside your usual territory, isn't it, sir? She asked. Just being thorough, Calloway replied, not meeting her eyes. Thoroughness is good, she agreed mildly, especially when checking whether certain secure communications might have been intercepted or manipulated. Calloway's head snapped up. What are you saying, Chief? Just that electronic records can be altered, but hardware doesn't lie. She handed him a small data drive. Maintenance logs from the quantum encryption modules. They record power usage even when the content is classified. Interesting patterns in there. This could be seen as interference with an ongoing investigation. Could be, or it could be routine maintenance documentation. She shrugged. Your call, sir. The data drive felt heavy in Calloway's pocket as he made his way back to his quarters. Before he could review it, however, general quarters sounded throughout the ship, the alarm cutting through the afternoon routine with jarring urgency. Officers and crew ran to their stations as the 1MC blared. General quarters, all hands man your battle stations. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. In the Combat Direction Center, officers crowded around radar displays, showing an unexpected contact surfacing 15 miles off the carrier's starboard bow. Submarine, nuclear class, sir, reported the tactical officer, her voice tight with tension, not following any known Russian or Chinese acoustic signature. Admiral Whitcroft entered the CDC, immediately taking command. Identification? None, sir. They're maintaining complete communication silence. No response to standard challenges. Captain Verney studied the displays with growing concern. Passive sonar indicates American propeller design. Could be one of ours. That's impossible, Whitcroft snapped, his face flushing with anger. We have no submarines deployed in this region. Lieutenant Commander Calloway entered, slightly out of breath from his run from engineering. Permission to enter CDC, sir. Granted, Captain Verney responded before the Admiral could object. Your assessment, Lieutenant Commander? Calloway studied the acoustic signature displayed on the main screen. Sir, this matches the profile of a Virginia-class submarine, but with significant modifications. The propulsion system is unusual. I didn't realize you were a submarine expert, Lieutenant Commander, Whitcroft remarked coldly. I served 2 years under Commander Hale during the Poseidon trials, sir. The name hung in the air, creating an immediate tension. Several officers exchanged glances, the connection between the morning's events and the current situation suddenly apparent. Admiral, interrupted the communications officer, his voice unexpectedly loud in the tense silence. We're receiving a transmission from the submarine. Text only, via secure burst frequency. Display it, ordered Captain Verne. The main tactical display flickered, radar imagery temporarily replaced by text. 5 words appeared on the screen, stark white against black. Awaiting orders from Commander Hale. The Combat Direction Center fell silent as the message glowed on the screen. Every eye turned to Admiral Whitcroft, whose face hardened into a mask of controlled fury. Outside, the sea had darkened with approaching weather, the horizon line blurring between gray water and grayer sky. Respond immediately, Whitcroft ordered, his voice dangerously quiet. Identify yourself and state your mission. You are in restricted waters approaching a U.S. Navy carrier group. The communications officer transmitted the message. Seconds stretched into minutes with no response. The tactical display continued tracking the submarine, which had come to a complete stop 15 miles from their position, just within visual range if they launched aerial reconnaissance. Still no response, sir, the communications officer finally reported. Try again, all frequencies. Another attempt, another silence. The tension in the CDC grew palpable as officers exchanged uncertain glances. Captain Verna studied the sonar readings with increasing concern. Then the screen flickered again. A new message appeared. USS Phantom, Special Warfare Division, will communicate only with Commander Hale. Captain Verne turned to the Admiral. Sir, there is no USS Phantom in the Naval Registry. Because it doesn't exist, Whitcroft replied through clenched teeth. He turned to the tactical officer. Weapons status? Sir? The officer's surprise was evident. I asked for weapons status, Lieutenant. That vessel is refusing direct orders. Captain Verne stepped closer to the Admiral, lowering his voice. Sir, before we escalate, we should confirm what we're dealing with. If that's an American submarine... There are no American submarines in this region, Whitcroft cut him off. This is either a foreign vessel using spoof signatures or a direct violation of chain of command. Neither is acceptable. He addressed the room. Launch alert fighters, send armed helicopters for close reconnaissance. I want visual confirmation of what we're dealing with. As officers moved to comply, Lieutenant Commander Calloway approached Captain Verne, his voice pitched for the captain's ears only. "Captain, may I speak with you privately?" Verne hesitated, then nodded. "Admiral, with your permission, I need to consult with Lieutenant Commander Calloway on some technical matters." Whitcroft waved them off, his attention focused on the tactical displays. "Be quick about it." In the small conference room adjacent to the CDC, Calloway closed the door. "Captain, Project Poseidon included development of a deep-water stealth submarine with experimental systems. Commander Hale was its operational designer and first test pilot. If that's the Phantom out there, you're suggesting this is an American submarine operating outside the chain of command?" Verne asked, incredulous. "That's mutiny, Lieutenant Commander." "Not exactly, sir. The Phantom was designed for deep reconnaissance in hostile waters, operating at depths no other vessel can reach. Its protocols would include contingency communications only with authorized personnel. And Hale was authorized. She was more than authorized, sir. The biometric systems were specifically keyed to her command codes. It's a failsafe against capture or compromise." Verne absorbed this, his expression troubled. "Why wasn't I briefed on this project?" "Compartmentalization, sir. Poseidon had the highest security classification. Even the CNO had only partial knowledge." "And you know this how?" Calloway hesitated. "I served under Commander Hale during the development phase. I was transferred to the Everett when she took command of the sea trials. So that submarine out there could be the most advanced vessel in our fleet, sir, and it will only respond to Commander Hale because that's precisely how it was designed." Meanwhile, the submarine maintained position, ignoring all communications except to repeat its original message. The FA-18s launched from the carrier flew low passes over the area, confirming the presence of a submarine unlike any in known service. Smaller than standard attack submarines, but with unusual hull configurations suggesting advanced capabilities. From the air, the pilots reported a sleek black vessel with no visible national markings, its sail structure radically different from conventional designs. It remained on the surface, unmoving despite the aircraft circling overhead. "Vessel appears to be American design, sir, but heavily modified," reported the lead pilot. "No weapons visible, no response to visual signals." In Washington, emergency meetings convened as naval intelligence grappled with the situation. Records of Project Poseidon had been classified or deleted, leaving officials scrambling to understand what they were facing. 12 hours into the standoff, Admiral Whitcroft received a direct call from the Chief of Naval Operations in his private quarters. The Admiral's face darkened as he listened to the voice on the secure line. "Malcolm, what the hell is happening out there? I've got the Secretary of Defense asking about a submarine program I've never heard of." "A misunderstanding, Admiral. We're handling it." "Not well enough. I'm looking at satellite imagery of what appears to be an American submarine refusing orders from a carrier group commander. This isn't a misunderstanding. It's potentially mutiny. With respect, sir, if you'd authorize me to use force against what might be a $3 billion American submarine, absolutely not. I'm sending a SEAL team with specific ROE. And Malcolm, I want to know exactly why you relieved Commander Hale. The official report is suspiciously vague." Whitcroft placed the receiver down with controlled precision, though his hand shook slightly. Outside his window, the sea had grown rougher, white-capped waves reflecting the carrier's running lights in fractured patterns. As night fell, tension built aboard the carrier. Rumors spread about Commander Hale's dismissal, the mysterious submarine, and Project Poseidon. Junior officers whispered that the evidence against Hale was fabricated, while others defended the Admiral's decision. The crew, sensing something significant underway, maintained a heightened alertness despite the lack of official information. At midnight, the submarine moved for the first time, silently gliding beneath the surface to reposition directly in the carrier's path, forcing the entire group to alter course. It was a demonstration of capability and resolve that rattled the command staff. "It's toying with us," muttered the tactical officer as they tracked the submarine's movements. "Like it knows exactly what we're going to do before we do it." Captain Verne studied the navigation plot thoughtfully. "Or it's ensuring we can't ignore it. In his quarters, Admiral Whitcroft reviewed classified files on his secure terminal, his face illuminated by the blue glow of the screen. A knock interrupted his concentration. "Enter." Lieutenant Commander Calloway appeared in the doorway. "Admiral, Captain Verney suggested I might help with some technical aspects of the situation." Whitcroft studied him for a long moment, then gestured to a chair. "Close the door." As Calloway sat, the Admiral turned his screen away. "You worked with Hale on Poseidon," he stated. It wasn't a question. "Yes, sir." "How do I communicate with that submarine?" Calloway chose his words carefully, aware of the dangerous territory he was entering. "You don't, sir. The Phantom was specifically designed to operate autonomously with communication security as the priority. Its systems recognize only pre-authorized command personnel. That's unacceptable. No naval vessel operates outside the chain of command." "That was actually the point, Admiral. After the Walker-Whitworth espionage cases, naval intelligence created a program for vessels that could operate even if command structures were compromised. The Phantom responds only to Commander Hale because that's exactly how it was designed." The Admiral's jaw tightened. "And if something happened to Hale?" Calloway hesitated, weighing how much to reveal. "Then it would follow contingency protocols, established before deployment, which are complete mission parameters, then return to predetermined coordinates for recovery." Whitcroft stood and moved to the window, staring out into the darkness where, somewhere beyond visual range, the submarine waited. "And what exactly is its mission?" "That information was compartmentalized, sir. Commander Hale was the only person aboard this carrier with complete mission knowledge." The Admiral's reflection in the glass showed a flash of something. Fear, perhaps, or realization. "You're saying we have an American submarine with advanced capabilities, operating under unknown orders, that refuses to communicate with anyone except an officer I relieved this morning." "That's correct, sir." "Why would such a system be authorized? It violates every principle of naval command structure." Calloway remained silent, his expression carefully neutral. The Admiral turned, studying him. "You haven't asked why I relieved Commander Hale?" "It's not my place to question, sir." "But you do question it. I can see it in your face." Whitcroft returned to his desk. "You're dismissed, Lieutenant Commander." "Sir, if I could suggest—" "You're dismissed." In the corridor outside the Admiral's quarters, Calloway encountered Captain Verne waiting. "Well," the captain asked quietly. "He's not going to recall her, sir. And he doesn't understand what he's dealing with." Verne sighed. "Keep monitoring the situation. If anything changes with the submarine, I want to know immediately." In the early morning hours, with most of the crew asleep except those on watch, a new message arrived from the submarine. "Critical intelligence acquired. Commander Hale required for authentication and analysis. 24 hours until automated transmission to Strategic Command." The message sent the CDC into renewed activity. Admiral Whitcroft, summoned from his quarters, read it with growing anger. "They're threatening us," he declared. "This is blackmail." "Sir," Captain Verne ventured, "it may not be a threat. If they've gathered intelligence requiring immediate action, then they can transmit it through proper channels. This is an attempt to force our hand." The Admiral turned to the communications officer. "Prepare a message. We will not respond to ultimatums. They have 1 hour to establish normal communications, or we will treat them as a hostile vessel." The officers exchanged alarmed glances. Even threatening action against what appeared to be an American submarine crossed a dangerous line. "Sir," Verne protested, "we should consult with Pacific Command before—" "I've made my decision, Captain." The message was transmitted. No response came from the submarine, though sonar detected increased activity around the vessel, suggesting it might be preparing to dive. Just as tensions reached breaking point, the communications officer straightened suddenly. "Sir, incoming transmission from Pacific Command, Priority Alpha." The main screen displayed the message: "Stand down all operations regarding submarine contact. CNO inbound to your location. ETA 0600 hours. Maintain position and take no further action." The Admiral read the order, his face showing a complex mix of emotions: anger, confusion, and something that might have been fear. Without comment, he turned and left the CDC, leaving a wake of unanswered questions. As sunrise approached, the carrier group remained in position, maintaining a wary watch on the submarine. In his quarters, Lieutenant Commander Calloway accessed the data drive given to him by Chief Lowell. The encryption logs revealed an anomaly. Commander Hale's alleged communications had been inserted into the system after the fact, not generated organically. A knock at his door forced him to hide the drive quickly. "Come in." Captain Verne entered, closing the door behind him. "The Chief of Naval Operations will be here in 30 minutes, with Commander Hale." Calloway's surprise was evident. "They're bringing her back?" "Apparently, and the CNO is coming personally, along with the Director of Naval Intelligence. This just escalated well beyond our pay grades." "Did they say why?" "No, but I think we're about to find out what's really going on." Verne hesitated. "The Admiral is not taking this well. He's been on secure comms with someone in Washington for the last hour. Whatever's happening, it's bigger than just a disciplinary issue with Hale." Outside, the sea had calmed with the approaching dawn, the water's surface smooth and reflective as glass. The first hints of sunrise touched the eastern horizon, promising clarity after a night of uncertainty. As dawn broke over the carrier group, radar detected an approaching helicopter. Standing on the flight deck, Admiral Whitcroft, Captain Verne, and Lieutenant Commander Calloway watched as the aircraft grew from a speck to a recognizable shape. The Admiral's posture was rigid, his expression carefully controlled, but with tension evident in the set of his jaw. The helicopter landed, its rotors slowly winding down as the side door opened. The first to emerge was Commander Hale, now wearing standard naval working uniform without rank insignia. Her face showed the strain of the past 24 hours, but her bearing remained as controlled as ever. Following her came the Chief of Naval Operations himself, a startling indication of the situation's severity. But it was the third person who caused a ripple of shock among the waiting officers. The Director of Naval Intelligence, Admiral Eleanor Reeves. The CNO approached, acknowledging the waiting officers with a curt nod. "Admiral Whitcroft," he said coldly before turning to Hale. "Commander, we need resolution immediately." Hale nodded, her expression revealing nothing. "I'll need access to secure communications and my authentication codes reinstated." "Already done," the DNI confirmed. She glanced toward the horizon where the submarine was just visible as a dark shape against the morning sea. "Though I'm curious how a submarine that officially doesn't exist managed to position itself in the exact location needed to intercept Russian underwater surveillance devices. Devices we didn't know existed until 6 hours ago when your submarine transmitted their specifications." This revelation rippled through the officers present. Astria met Admiral Whitcroft's gaze steadily, but said nothing. "Perhaps," the CNO suggested with deliberate emphasis, "we should continue this conversation in the secure briefing room. Admiral Whitcroft, you'll join us." Inside the secure briefing room, the air felt charged with unspoken tensions. Only the highest-ranking officers were present: the CNO, the Director of Naval Intelligence, Admiral Whitcroft, Captain Verne, and Commander Hale. Lieutenant Commander Calloway had been included at the CNO's specific request, his connection to Project Poseidon deemed relevant to the discussion. The DNI activated the room's security protocols, sealing them from outside observation or surveillance. Displays around the room illuminated, showing various angles of the mysterious submarine, still waiting silently 15 miles from the carrier. "Let's get straight to the point," the CNO began, his voice clipped and professional. Project Poseidon was never merely a submarine development program. It was a counterintelligence operation designed to identify security leaks within naval command structures. Admiral Whitcroft's expression revealed nothing, though his knuckles whitened as he clasped his hands on the table. Commander Hale's unauthorized communications were actually sanctioned disinformation, the DNI continued, activating a secure display that showed communication logs, approved at the highest levels but hidden from the regular chain of command. "I don't understand," Captain Verne said, looking between the senior officers. "Why would we run a counterintelligence operation against our own command structure?" "Because we had evidence someone was passing deployment information to Chinese intelligence," the DNI explained. "We needed to identify the source. Conventional investigations had hit dead ends." "By fabricating evidence against Commander Hale?" Verne asked, his discomfort evident. "By creating a controlled narrative," the DNI corrected. Only 5 people knew the full operation parameters. Commander Hale volunteered to be the apparent security risk. All eyes turned to Hale, who sat quietly, her gaze steady, but revealing nothing of her thoughts. And I took the bait, Admiral Whitcroft realized, his face ashen. But I received classified intelligence about her communications. It came through proper channels. Yes, Hale spoke finally, her voice calm and precise. Intelligence that could only have reached you through unauthorized channels. The information was compartmentalized specifically to identify who would access it and how they would use it. The DNI placed a file on the table, sliding it toward Admiral Whitcroft. 4 hours after you relieved Commander Hale, a Chinese intelligence officer in Beijing received confirmation that the target had been neutralized. They believed they'd successfully removed the officer responsible for tracking their new deep-water surveillance network. Admiral Whitcroft stared at the file, comprehension dawning slowly. You're suggesting I was manipulated by Chinese intelligence? Not directly, Hale clarified, her tone neutral, neither accusing nor absolving. You acted on what you believed was legitimate intelligence, but that intelligence was planted, and its path to you reveals the actual security breach. On the main display, surveillance photos appeared, showing a senior staff member from Naval Intelligence meeting with known foreign contacts. Captain Lawrence Mercer, the DNI stated, your former academy roommate and the person who first flagged Commander Hale's communications for investigation. He was arrested 3 hours ago at his home in Arlington. The full implications sank in. Admiral Whitcroft wasn't a traitor. He was an unwitting tool used against his own officer. His face showed the dawning horror of what he'd done to Hale's reputation. The submarine, he managed finally, his voice barely audible. The USS Phantom is a deep reconnaissance vessel with advanced capabilities, Hale explained, activating another display showing technical specifications. It was tracking the Chinese surveillance network when it intercepted communications about my removal. Its protocols required verification of command change through secure channels, which is why it surfaced and demanded communication with you. Yes, sir, its mission was too sensitive to risk compromise. Lieutenant Commander Calloway spoke for the first time. The quantum encryption logs confirm it. The evidence against Commander Hale was inserted into the system after the fact. The CNO nodded grimly. We've been tracking Captain Mercer for months, but we needed to understand the full extent of the network. The operation with Commander Hale was designed to force them to act visibly. And I was kept in the dark, Admiral Whitcroft said, a statement rather than a question. Necessary compartmentalization, the DNI replied without apology. Your reaction had to be genuine for the operation to succeed. The room fell silent as the implications settled. Years of naval training had taught them all about need to know and compartmentalized intelligence. But experiencing it firsthand, being an unwitting pawn in a larger game, was something else entirely. We need to address the current situation, the CNO finally said, breaking the heavy silence. Commander Hale needs to resume control of the Phantom and complete the intelligence collection. The surveillance network they've discovered represents a significant threat to our Pacific operations. And the crew? Admiral Whitcroft asked quietly, looking directly at Hale for the first time since she'd returned. What do we tell them about what happened on deck yesterday? The room fell silent until Hale spoke. The truth, sir. That security protocols worked exactly as designed. The answer seemed to surprise Whitcroft. You're willing to explain it that way, after I publicly humiliated you? This was never about me, Admiral, Hale replied simply. It was about protecting our operational security. Personal feelings don't enter into it. The CNO nodded approvingly. Commander Hale's perspective is correct. This will be presented as a successful counterintelligence operation. Your actions, Admiral, will be described as part of that operation. Captain Verne studied Hale with newfound respect. You knew this could happen when you volunteered. It was a calculated risk, she acknowledged. One worth taking to protect our assets and operations. The DNI checked her watch. The Phantom's automated protocols will engage in less than 3 hours. Commander, you need to re-establish communication and override those protocols. Yes, ma'am. On the flight deck an hour later, the carrier's crew assembled in formation. The morning sun had fully risen, casting long shadows across the deck. As Admiral Whitcroft stepped forward, Commander Hale beside him, her rank insignia restored. "Yesterday," the Admiral began, his voice carrying across the assembled sailors, "I relieved Commander Hale of duty based on intelligence that appeared to show serious security violations." The crew remained at attention, though many eyes shifted between the Admiral and Commander Hale, confusion evident on their faces. "Today, I am reinstating her with full honors and acknowledgement that her actions represent the highest traditions of naval service and sacrifice." A murmur ran through the formation, quickly silenced by sharp glances from Chief Petty Officers. The Admiral turned to face Hale directly. Commander Hale willingly accepted damage to her reputation as part of a critical counterintelligence operation. She placed mission above personal interest in ways few officers would accept. In a gesture unprecedented in most sailors' experience, Admiral Whitcroft saluted her first, a profound reversal of military protocol and public acknowledgement of extraordinary service. The gesture sent a clear message throughout the crew. Whatever had happened, whatever they thought they had witnessed the previous day, had been recontextualized in an instant. "Commander Hale will be departing to resume command of a specialized unit," Whitcroft continued. "Her actions have identified both threats to our security and exceptional courage within our ranks." As the crew rendered salutes, the water beyond the carrier stirred. A sleek black submarine surfaced gracefully nearby, its unusual hull design and advanced features visible for the first time. On its sail, previously classified markings now displayed: USS Phantom SSN-X1. The sight drew audible reactions from the crew. The vessel was unlike anything in the known naval inventory, smaller than a Virginia-class submarine, but with an aggressive predatory profile that spoke of speed and stealth, rather than the brute force of ballistic missile submarines. Hale stepped toward the waiting helicopter, pausing only to return Lieutenant Commander Calloway's salute. "The Phantom needs a new XO," she said quietly. "Someone with experience in both surface and subsurface operations. Report in 2 weeks at Naval Base Kitsap." "Yes, Commander," he responded, understanding the honor being offered. As her helicopter approached the waiting submarine, communications received one more message from the Phantom. "Command authentication confirmed. Welcome back, Commander." 3 months later, the USS Everett returned to Naval Base Kitsap after completing its deployment. The incident with Commander Hale and the mysterious submarine had already become part of unofficial Navy lore, though official records remained classified. Admiral Whitcroft stood on the dock as officers disembarked, his posture reflecting both his authority and the humbling experience of the past months. The security breach had been contained, Captain Mercer sentenced in a closed military trial, and the Chinese surveillance network neutralized thanks to the Phantom's intelligence gathering. A junior officer approached with a message. "Sir, Commander Hale requests your presence at Dock 23. Whitcroft found Dock 23 apparently empty until a sleek black submarine surfaced silently, water cascading off its advanced hull design. The USS Phantom had returned from its mission. As the submarine's crew disembarked, Whitcroft noticed something unusual. Their unit patches displayed a phoenix rising from waves, with the Latin phrase, Fides in Tenebris, faith in darkness. Commander Hale emerged last, exchanging salutes with the Admiral. "Welcome back, Commander. Successful deployment?" "Very, sir. The Phantom performed beyond expectations. We've collected intelligence that will transform our understanding of deep water operations." They walked together along the dock, professional courtesy having evolved into genuine respect. "The Secretary of the Navy mentioned a new program," Whitcroft commented. "Something about expanding specialized reconnaissance capabilities." "Project Trident," Hale confirmed. 3 more vessels like the Phantom, operating as an independent task force. "Under your command?" "Joint Command, Admiral. The program needs both operational experience and strategic oversight." She paused, studying his reaction. "Your name was suggested to oversee the strategic dimension." Whitcroft stopped, surprised by the implication. "After what happened?" "Because of what happened, sir. You demonstrated exactly what the program needs: commitment to security protocols even when personally difficult, the willingness to make hard decisions based on available intelligence, then adapt when circumstances change." As they reached the end of the dock, the Phantom's crew had formed into ranks. Lieutenant Commander Calloway, now wearing the insignia of the Phantom's executive officer, called them to attention, and as one, they saluted the Admiral and their commander. "Your crew seems exceptionally disciplined for a specialized unit," Whitcroft observed. "They understand what we represent, sir, that sometimes protecting the fleet means operating in shadows, without recognition. That true service sometimes requires accepting misunderstanding. In the distance, the USS Everett dominated the harbor, its massive bulk representing conventional naval power. Here at the secluded dock, the Phantom represented something different, the evolution of warfare into realms where technology and human judgment intersect in new ways. 3 months ago, I stripped you of rank on that carrier deck," Whitcroft said quietly. "I was wrong, but I was also doing my duty as I understood it. I never took it personally, Admiral. You should have. It was personal, to your reputation, your career, your honor." Hale looked toward her submarine and crew. "With respect, sir, it wasn't about me. It was about maintaining systems that protect something larger than any individual officer." The Admiral considered this perspective. "How did you do it? Stand there and accept disgrace for something you didn't do?" "By remembering why I wear this uniform, sir, the same reason you do." The answer was simple yet profound, capturing what had drawn both of them to naval service decades earlier. As they parted ways, Whitcroft watched Hale rejoin her crew, struck by the realization that naval tradition runs deeper than the formal hierarchy, that true leadership sometimes means accepting injustice for a greater purpose. In his office later, he found a small package containing a unit patch from the Phantom and a handwritten note. "The sea hides our greatest vulnerabilities and our greatest strengths. Sometimes we must descend into darkness to protect what matters. Commander Hale." Whitcroft placed the patch beside his service medals, a reminder that sometimes honor comes not from public recognition, but from quiet sacrifice that few will ever see or understand. The morning sun streamed through his office window, casting light across the patch's embroidered phoenix. Like that mythical creature, Commander Hale had emerged from the flames of public disgrace, transformed but unbroken. The image served as a powerful reminder that in the complex world of military service and national security, appearances could be deceiving, and true strength often lay in the willingness to be misunderstood for a greater purpose. Outside his window, the USS Phantom prepared for its next mission, its black hull absorbing rather than reflecting the morning light, present yet somehow apart, visible yet secretive. Like its commander, it represented a different kind of service, one conducted in shadows, away from recognition or acclaim, but no less vital to the nation's security. Whitcroft touched the Phoenix emblem one more time before turning to his duties. The experience had changed him, forced him to reconsider the certainties he had held throughout his career. In the end, perhaps that had been part of the lesson as well, that even admirals had more to learn about service, sacrifice, and the true meaning of command.